Hello and welcome to the Neolithic Revolution, the game. It's a basic card game that teaches the aspects associated with the Neolithic Revolution, the emergence of farming, and the need to conserve resources, all in a fun card-based format. If you're interested in checking the game out itself, you can click the link in the show notes. This is an overview of how the game works for first-time players. It's very straightforward, but I'll go over a couple of the key concepts here. The objective is to build one complete city, in which case you need to put down 3 farm cards, 1 market card, 1 temple card, and 1 palace card. Each one of these items requires a cost to build. The cost to build, you will notice, is always going to be in the top right-hand corner in a circle. There are 2 things that you need to build most items: food cards and building cards. Food cards look like the little stalks of wheat. Building cards look like the little hammers. Some building cards, once you have put them down, will actually produce items for you on a turn-by-turn basis. That is indicated in the bottom left-hand corner. Some cards produce building materials, some produce food materials. Crucially, remember, the game ends the moment someone completes a city. You don't have to wait for a full turn. It's over the moment that all those 6 cards are on the table. There are a couple of different types of cards in the game: building cards, military cards, action cards, climate and resource cards. Building, military, and action cards are all shuffled together and become part of the draw deck. Climate cards and resource cards are kept separate, as I'll explain now. To set up the game is very simple. All the climate cards are shuffled and put down, face down, in one pile. The building and food resource cards are separated out. These cards can be face up in another pile in the middle of the playing field. All the remaining cards, the military cards, the building cards, and the action cards, are shuffled. Each player is dealt 5. The remainder is placed in the center of the table, face down. This becomes the draw deck. Now, the resource or the climate card is always what happens first. So there is whoever is the first player to go is the only player that will ever touch the climate cards. At the start of their turn, so let's just say it's player 1 and there's 4 players. Player 1 turns over a climate card. Then what happens is you follow the instructions that are on those cards. There's only 3: fair conditions, drought, and forest fire. In a fair condition, if you have buildings on the table, they produce whatever is indicated on the card. If there's a drought, farms, settlements, and markets do not produce because food is not produced. If there's a forest fire, forests do not produce, so you cannot draw building materials from those. Again, the first player to go is the only player that will ever touch the climate card. So if fair conditions is played and you have 3 farms out, then you would end up drawing 6 food cards, and you get to put those on the card immediately. These resource cards then can be spent to build different items, as I already discussed previously, or to support military units, which we'll get into now. Each turn, every player draws 2 cards and may make up to 2 actions. An action involves playing a card. You can build, you can play a military card, or you can play an action card. But you can only do 2 things. Players may only play cards on their turn unless it is an action card marked immediate, and there's only 1 of those. Players may trade with each other, but a trade may be instigated by a player only on their turn. In order to win the game, you have to build the different items. Building is 1 action. The cost to build is in the upper right-hand corner of each card. So in this case, if you had a farm card in your hand and you had 2 wheat cards on the table, you can return the 2 wheat cards to the deck, the resource cards, and put the farm card down on the table. You have to have the required resource cards to be able to put a building card down. Spent resource cards are always just returned to their respective resource pile. Buildings produce the turn after they are built. So if I played a farm card and the next climate card that's played is fair conditions, I could draw 3 food resource cards as a result of that, but I don't get to do that until the start of my next turn. Another thing that you can do is play a military card. Military cards do require support. So if I have 1 resource food card on the table, and in my hand I have a military card, which is indicated by the club, I can put that military card down, but it can only stay down in front of me as long as I have that 1 resource card to support it. Now, you do not return a resource card to the deck if you put down a military card. It stays out there. They both stay out there. Combat requires an attack card. You can't carry out an attack on another player unless you can play the action card for the combat. All right? Combat is purely numerical. If I have 2 military cards down and my opponent only has 1 and I play the attack card, then I win the combat and I'm able to take something from them as is indicated. So military functions are always just numerical superiority. And each military unit needs to be supported by 1 food resource card that, again, is not returned to the deck when you put down the military card. Action cards are the simplest. You take the action that is specified on the card. It is to be done immediately. The only time you can play an action card when it is not your turn is if you're playing a cancel card, and that is specified on the card itself. Some rules to remember. You can trade, but you can only propose a trade on your turn. Combat is always numerical. Only the player who begins the game turns over the climate card, and the game will always come to an end the moment someone completes the first city. It's a very easy, straightforward game to play based off of a lot of other games that I've produced throughout the year. Again, if you're interested in downloading it and using it in the classroom, you can click the link that's in the show notes.